Welcome to Around the World with Dane Waters. This is our year-end special. Well, I don't know if it's a special. It's a Tuesday, but still, this is our first year-end special that we're doing, and we're going to talk about 2024 and what an amazing, amazing year it was. So much happened. Sadly, we have to start on the note that former President Jimmy Carter passed away. 100 years old. Listen, I'm 60 years old. I can't imagine another 40 years. I don't even know what I would do for another 40 years, but he was a very controversial president, which we'll talk about with our special guest, Ben Murray Bruce, here shortly. But once again, in 2024, I mean, what did it teach us? What did it show us? I mean, we had conflict, we had war, we had instability, not a whole lot of bright points, really, when you look at the global scene, but that's what we were going to talk about today, is say, how does the darkness prepare for the lightness? You know, it's always the darkest before the storm, or before the light, I think is the saying. So we'll talk about that. But the other thing is, we have to talk about 2024, is that it's a roadmap for the future. I think it really is. I think that it sets the tone from the standpoint that it is clearly setting up the stage for a fight between good versus evil, authoritarians versus freedom and democracy. But it's not all about politics. I mean, we look at the advance of artificial intelligence, which honestly just scares the bejesus out of me, but if you look at what it's doing when it comes to movies, it's coming to entertainment, it's coming to politics, it's coming to war. They're starting to use it on the battlefield in Ukraine from the standpoint of, how do we get artificial intelligence to tell us how to wage the war on the Ukrainian side? Well, let me tell you, I mean, I don't know, for all you youngins out there, you may not remember War Games, the movie with Matthew Broderick, where they talk about AI taking over. Of course, you have Terminator movies as well. So AI is a big issue that I think that 2024 just started that whole trend. And I think that we're going to see a lot of it in 2025. But there's so much to talk about. So much positive, so much there's negative. But once again, really what we make of it as far as what the future is. Anyway, so let's take a quick break here. Welcome again to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters. And we'll be back in a minute with our special guest, Ben Murray Bruce. Thank you.
Isn't the Nevertron move? I'll bring it down to a couple of
Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm broadcasting today from London, England. Next week I will be coming to you from Bologna, Italy, or we say in the United States, Bologna, Italy. I don't know how many of you guys have had bologna sandwiches, but that's where bologna sandwiches come from, Bologna. Well, let's get started here, talk about the year in review. Let's talk about the political landscape. Over 60 countries, over half the world's population voted in elections this year. I mean, imagine, India voted, Indonesia voted, China voted, if you really want to call it an election. Russia voted, once again, if you really want to call it an election. There's so many elections around the world and so many changes. I think we're seeing definitely a big fight between what they call the far right, those who really want to be more nationalistic in many ways. And once again, it really depends on, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing. But, it's very clearly, I believe that 2025 will see more borders closing. Those people in countries, especially in Africa, who want to travel to the rest of the world may have a more difficult time. So I think immigration is going to be a huge issue in 2025, but we'll talk more about that shortly. But in addition to voting, and listen, I know we had the U.S. elections we're going to talk about, the U.K. elections we'll talk about, the French elections we'll talk about when we get our guest on the show here. But let's talk a little bit about, one of my favorite topics, Elon Musk. Elon, listen, he's worth $360 billion. Can you even fathom what that means, $360 billion? I mean, I can't even do the math about how much interest he must make in a minute. More than I'll make in a lifetime, probably. But with that $360 billion, I guess you run out of things to do. So what is Elon Musk starting to do? He's starting to look at investing in elections around the world. I mean, he's very overt about it. I mean, whether it's the far-right party in Germany, whether it's the Reform Party in the UK. I mean, he gave substantial amount of money to Donald Trump's presidential campaign. He was involved in Brazil. It's interesting. Listen, I do applaud the fact that he's very upfront about it. So that's a great thing. So these are a lot of things we have to talk about today. And I'm sure that my special guest there, Ben Murray Bruce, has a very special thought about Elon Musk. But listen, welcome, Ben. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Happy New Year, Dane. I haven't seen you in a while, but Happy New Year to you and your wonderful family.
Well, thank you. Same to you. You look younger every day. You really do.
I'm a lucky man. So do you, my brother.
You are.
So do you.
Listen, when I grow up and I become an adult, I want to be as handsome as you. That's my goal, and as smart as you, I have to say. So we'll see.
Thank you.
Anyway, well, Happy New Year to you as well. Well, technically, it's Happy New Year's Eve. Tomorrow is the 2025. So listen, today, you know what we're going to do today, Ben? We're going to just talk about 2024, all the amazing things that happened, some of the not so amazing things.
Right.
So if you're ready, I'm ready to get started.
Okay, I'm ready. Shoot.
So let's talk about politics. This show isn't all about politics. We're going to get to sports and technology and entertainment, one of your favorite things, here in a few minutes. But let's talk about politics.
Yeah.
So America, the U.S., the election between Donald Trump, Joe Biden stepping out of the race. Give us, we have a lot to cover, so we're going to kind of take this in small little chunks. So give me your overview about what the impact politically 2024 had on American politics.
First of all, I didn't think Kamala was going to win. And the reason I say so was because when I lost my wife and she was buried in Valdosta, Georgia, I met a lot of folks in rural America, and just talking to them, one thing I found out, which I never knew at the time, was a lot of folks in America were not ready for a female president, as one. Two, I don't think they were ready for a black female president. Now, speaking to as many people as I did in Georgia and places like that, I realized that Kamala couldn't win no matter what she did. I think psychologically, America just wasn't ready for a female president at the time. Now that Donald Trump has won the election, it's a game changer for the world. I don't know what he's going to do. He seems to be very spontaneous. He says what he does, and he does what he says. He thinks about it, and he's a very unusual politician. The immigration issue, I think, is a global phenomenon today. I think everybody's moving to the right. I think what is happening in the world is this: poor people are making babies, and rich people are not making babies. I think that's the fundamental issue. And the rich people are whites, and the poor people are non-white. And those who are making babies are not in countries where they have a lot of money, and they want to move to rich countries. And so with poor people making babies, wanting to move to rich countries, the notion that you can have a white country doesn't exist anymore. Britain is going to become brown. America has had a black president. You almost had a black female president. I think America is going to become brown. I think maybe countries like China and Russia may escape it for a while. Germany will become Arab or brown because they have a million folks from Syria in Germany. And I think the world is changing. And I think the way the world is changing is pissing off a lot of white people. And that's why you have the movement to the right. The movement to the right, because they see their neighbors as black or brown or yellow, and the arrogance and the dominant position of the white race is at stake. And so that is a fundamental problem. I think that's what drives Donald Trump. It could be because of racism. It could be because of Christianity. It could be because of whatever factor you call it. But everybody's moving to the right, and I think what Donald Trump is doing and what Elon Musk is now doing with his money is going to make sure those who make all these babies stay in their country, and those who don't make babies stay in their country. I think that's where the future is right now. It's not right, but I think that's where it's going.
That's a very interesting concept. Well, first of all, I'm not an angry white man, to be very clear.
You're
so.
not.
But I am a poor man, but I'm not making babies either because I'm too old for that. So I don't fall into any of the categories you're talking about. But The reality is it's a very interesting thing because, yeah, I mean, there are certain parts of the world where there's, like, even in Nigeria, I mean, it's definitely a huge issue there as far as increased population, increased birth rates. How do you deal with that? What do you do with it? Um, you know, but then, it's interesting what you say, because it made me think about Saudi Arabia, for example. I mean, all these countries go through nationalism. All these countries are going through far right. All these countries are, as you said, dealing with, whether they're going to be, black president or in the in the UK, whether it's going to be a black prime minister as well. But in Saudi Arabia, I mean, just the Saudis. I mean, they control everything. I mean, they don't run into these issues of immigration issues, and so they've protected themselves in so many ways. So I think that as you see this for 2025 in the future, I think that as you see this change among demographics, among leadership, I think the Middle East, especially like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and others, you're not going to see that. But I digress. But immigration is a huge issue. Like in 2024, immigration influenced the U.S. election. Correct. It influenced the U.K. elections. Mm-hmm. It's what you're seeing. They're going to have snap elections in Germany, which is a big issue there. But what is it? I don't know. I have mixed emotions. My relatives came over from Scotland and Ireland. Do you think closing your borders and immigration is a good thing for a country or a bad thing for a country?
First of all, I spent a lot of time in America. The farmers, the maids, the stewards, the cleaners, those who had the menial jobs are immigrants in America. If you shut the door to immigrants, the American agricultural sector, unless you use only technology, will collapse. They cannot survive without the immigrants. First of all, it makes no sense. So America is shutting the door to black Mexican immigrants. They're not shutting the door to white immigrants. And then you have to understand the sadness about this. Let me give you an analogy. If you went to the United States border control and you try to get into America, and you had a choice between a white person, a black person, an Indian person, or an immigrant, and you showed your passport, who do you think will give you the toughest time? Let me ask you this, Dane. If you're coming to America for the first time, and they make control, who do you think will give you the toughest time?
Well, an immigrant. I
Thank you.
I agree.
It's a crab mentality. So Kemi in England, who is an immigrant, doesn't want any more immigrants. Barack, the same. So those who got to these white countries as immigrants do not want any more immigrants. It's a crab mentality. Kemi is a Nigerian. She is now leader of the Conservative Party. She has an anti-immigrant position. But if it wasn't for the openness of Great Britain, she wouldn't be in England in the first place. That's the point I'm making. And the sadness about this is those who get to these countries legitimately do not want anybody else to come into this country. They feel there's enough blackness, or Mexicanness, or Indianness in America or Western Europe. They don't want anybody to get there. And this is what I fight against. Look, I was in Mexico, Cancun, for the Miss Universe pageant once, and I met a Mexican girl, and I said, like, why you guys cross the border all the time? And she said to me, well, first of all, California and Texas were part of Mexico. You took it from them, so why should they feel bad crossing the border to go back to their land? Now, what do you have to say to that?
Well, in many ways, I wish we could give Texas and California back to Mexico, okay? So you're asking the wrong man that question. But no, well, listen, if you deal with that logic, then, the entire western part of the United States belonged to France. Can you imagine all the French coming and saying, we want to take the,
Thank you.
No, please don't let more French come to our country. But it's amazing what you say about one of the reasons Donald Trump won is in Florida. He did very well among the Hispanics and the Latino community. It's because you're exactly right. You're spot on. That the Latinos who are in the United States, whether they came legally or not, they didn't want any more Latinos coming into the country. So therefore, they voted for Donald Trump because of his strong immigration reform. But on that note, I'm going to pepper this show with some 2025 predictions. Many universities in the United States send a notice out to all the international students, like in Nigeria and others, saying that you need to get back into the United States before January 20th, before Trump comes in, because he is thinking of putting a travel ban in place. So, this just use this as a word of wisdom that if for all those Nigerians who need to get back to the U.S. to go to college, you need to get back before January 20th, because honestly, there is a chance that Donald Trump's going to put a travel ban, and even students can't get back into the United States. So 2025, I don't know if you agree with this, but 2025, I think, is going to be a very critical year for immigration around the world. It's going to factor into more elections, and it's really going to be. I don't know what that's going to do to the world, but would you agree that immigration in 2025 is really going to be one of the top issues?
Look, the world is divided into two groups: the good and the evil. And immigration is apart from the wars, immigration is the biggest issue in the world today. But let me tell you the good side of it. Trump doesn't want foreign students in America anymore, I think. Okay, fine. African nations should now develop the educational system so our people can be happy in their countries. Sometimes I look at the positiveness of what Trump is doing. There's no reason why Nigeria shouldn't have great universities. South Africa has great universities. Ghana has great schools. We should develop institutions in our country to make sure our people stay in our country. It is in the interest of America and Western Europe to keep Africans and Asians in their country. So they need to help them economically. I'm talking of trade, not aid. And the leaders of African countries need to develop those countries. You can't be lazy as an African leader, and when you get sick, you go abroad. When you want to go to school, you send your kids abroad. It doesn't make any sense. African leaders should be held responsible and accountable to make sure their countries have the great, best high schools and universities so the kids can stay in the country. If you give a kid a choice to stay in the country and go somewhere else that's 0 degrees in Iowa or Alaska, they will choose to stay in their country. But we are partly to blame. Immigration is the biggest issue, but our African leaders are just as guilty as Donald Trump is being very protectionist. So yes, immigration is a very big issue and it's not going to stop. We are making babies. We don't have a population control policy. We don't understand that having these babies is counterproductive. Israel doesn't have the most number of babies, but it's one of the most developed nations in the world. Also because America gives it billions of dollars of free money, and Egypt. But Africa nations have to stop making all these babies. That's for Africa, South America, and Asia. Having all these babies in India and Pakistan is counterproductive to development. I don't understand how babies can grow your economy. They say you have a big market. Have a big market of poor people makes no sense. Have a big.
I agree.
Yeah. I'm not happy with Trump, but in a sense he has a point. You can't give him your problems.
But yeah, listen, brain drain around the world is one of the most difficult things, and I think that in 2024, listen, this is an issue that you and I have talked about before when it comes to immigration issues. But in a country like Nigeria, you're 100% right. One thing Russia has been doing, is that they're actually putting immigrants on boats in Africa to send to Europe to cause issues and to cause problems. Okay, so some of the mass immigration that you're seeing out of Africa is being promoted by the Russians because they know it's an issue in Europe, and it dilutes the electoral base, it dilutes, the economic base, it does a whole lot of things. So, but in 2025, here's a question. In 2025, I 1000% agree with you, but in addition to education, let's say that Nigeria created the greatest educational system in the world. You don't want these people to be educated and to leave, so, the follow-on to that is you have to create an economy and a quality of life where they want to stay, right? So,
yeah, but if we had the greatest educational system in the world, Nigerians by nature very entrepreneurial, they will create business. A lot of kids in Nigeria today don't want to work for a company. They create their own wealth. They're very smart people. The kids are very, very, very smart. They will create wealth by creating their own companies and do what makes them happy. Now it could be in sports, it could be in music, it could be in technology, it could be buying bitcoins. I mean, the kids are smart. I am shocked. The level of intelligence with kids who didn't go to university is outstanding. So let me tell you this. They have 10% of the opportunities an American child has. The Nigerian economy will be an incredible place to do business. So I do believe Africans, through poverty, through necessity, will create the wealth that they need. I'm not worried about that. But the governments in Africa need to give us a helping hand. And maybe what Trump is doing is a blessing in disguise.
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's an interesting way to put on it. I love the, you're always the half glass full guy versus me being the half glass empty guy, but I think that's great. I do. But listen, let's move on to some other things.
Yeah.
I want to talk about real quick let's go back to Elon Musk real quick. Do you think, Elon Musk having $360 billion, which is almost as much money as you have, close, he's getting close to your net worth there, I'm sure. Do you think it's okay for him to be spending his money to influence elections around the world?
Well, he can do whatever he likes with his money. I believe in freedom, and I can never stop anybody from spending his money any way he wants to spend his money. But Elon Musk is an immigrant. He's a South African. It confirms what I said earlier. When you're an immigrant and you go to another country, you move to the right. For some strange reason, I've never understood why, but that's exactly what happens. So I can predict how he thinks. He's moved to the right. He's more American than the American born in America. He wants America to be a white society. He wants the world to move to the right. And so it's his belief. And it plays, it's perfectly the way I think he would think. And the only way to stop him, stop buying his cars. Don't buy Teslas anymore. Stop. You got to stop making him rich. Then he's not going to be in a position to do it. You can only stop him economically. If you keep buying his cars, use SpaceX and everything it produces turns to gold, then he will do the kind of things he's doing and move the whole world to a totalitarian regime. And who knows, bring back Hitler. I don't know. But he seems like a crazy man to me.
Well, listen, I just want him to give me like one day's interest of his money, and I'll be a happy man for the rest of my life. That's all I want, And I'll be on this show talking about how great immigration and everything he's doing. Well, anyway, no, just kidding about that. Hey, listen, sadly, we got to take a quick break here. We had a whole hour to talk with Mr. Ben Murray Bruce here. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be back in a minute with Around the World with Dane Waters. Thank you.
What we've always maintained is the never Trump movement. I'll break it down into a couple of
Welcome back to Around the World with Dane Waters. I'm your host, Dane Waters. I'm sorry, I was catching up on my technical messages there. Listen, we're having an amazing conversation with Ben Murray Bruce about the world and immigration. We'll talk with just I have the one note for Nigeria. No more fooling around. No babies in 2025. Okay, so just want to tell you that's what 2025 is for you. Okay. No babies in Nigeria. But hey, come to America. Anyway, we'll go into something else here. Don't you love me on this show, Ben? By the way, in 2024, to me, one of the greatest events that happened in 2024 is Around the World with Dane Waters started because of Ben Murray Bruce. So thank you, Ben. I appreciate that.
It's a great show. And let me tell you what nobody knows yet. You're a genius. And when it comes to the 2027 elections, and this is your forte, you will tell us who is going to win, and you'll tell us why, you'll tell us how. The whole nation will be watching you. That's my prediction. They don't know how smart you are, and they don't know how you deal with statistics. I've worked with you. You're a genius. You call it right all the time. You said to me, Peter Obi will shake up the whole political landscape. Nobody took him seriously. The two political parties didn't. They dismissed him, and look at what he did. He shook up everybody. You predicted it. And you were right. And I told him, by the way, I said, Peter, Dane said you would do it, and that's what you did. He wants to meet you. Says I should tell him he wants to see you.
Well, I would love to. Peter, hello, good seeing you again. I mean, I'd love to see Peter. I really would.
I get it.
So,
I get him on the show. I get Peter on the show. How about that?
I would love. Oh, there's Peter's picture right there.
Okay,
You know, well, yeah, because Peter and I look like twins.
I get Peter on the show.
So, you know, we should have a twinsy show.
Okay,
but I would love to have Peter on the show.
Okay, I'll tell him to come on the show.
Okay.
It's a deal.
Listen, we only have
Okay.
20 minutes left, so we have a lot to cover. Let's talk about international conflicts. Russia, Ukraine. We're going to just jump to predictions here. What do you think is going to happen in 2025 between Russia and Ukraine?
I think Trump will impose a settlement. I think they'll keep their borders and there'll be a ceasefire. I don't see anybody giving up any territory willingly, except maybe the territory that Ukraine has in Russia. I don't know how that's going to work out. But I think there'll be a ceasefire. Crimea will go to Russia and the Donbass region will be split. I don't know. I think there'll be a ceasefire. I think the two sides are tired. They're totally exhausted. And I think they are all hoping that Trump comes in and imposes a ceasefire. I think that's what they want. Ukraine don't want to give up any land. That's what they don't want to do, but I don't think they have a choice. I think ultimately they're all hoping Trump comes in and imposes a ceasefire. I think they're all exhausted and they want to find a way for this to come to an end.
I agree with that prediction. I think there will be a ceasefire. I think it's just unfortunate that you know, there'll have to be territorial land the Ukrainian land has to be given up. And I tell you, it's just the analogy I use for everybody. How would you feel if somebody came into your backyard and took half of your land and said, "I'm staying"? You know, that's what's happening.
Horrible.
You just can't allow it to happen. But anyway, I agree with that. Let's talk about the Middle East. Lots going on. I mean, do you believe, what's your prediction for the Middle East when it comes to Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, Israel? What do you think is going to happen there?
I think Israel is now the undisputed dominant power in the Middle East. They have won the war. They've decimated, what's this group called? Hezbollah. I think Syria, I don't know if Syria is going to split into several countries or stay as one, I don't know. But I think Iran is in trouble. Who knows if there's going to be a regime change in Iran. But I think Israel has certainly won the war. They will take more territory. Hamas is finished as a military organization, but the hatred for the Palestinians will remain for hundreds of years. They will constantly attack Israel, and Israel will constantly wipe them out. I don't see any chance with modern warfare, with modern bombs and equipments and missiles and drones. I don't see anybody being able to face Israel at this point in time today. In 2025, Israel has definitely won the war. They will shape the Middle East to their liking. And I think with Trump as president, I don't think anybody is going to be fighting any wars in 2025 for the next 4 years. Because Trump is crazy, he would take you out. I think whatever they want to do, they'll wait until Trump leaves office. So I think Israel has won this part of the war. You know, the war never ends. But for this phase of the war, Israel has won. What I don't know is if there'll be a regime change in Iran. Because Iran obviously is in trouble right now. I don't know what's going to happen in Iran. But everywhere else, Israel has definitely won this war. And they'll get some hostages back.
Go ahead.
They'll get some hostages back. But Iran, I don't know, there could be a regime change. You know, it was Jimmy Carter that allowed the Ayatollah into Iran in the first place. I thought that was a bad move when they got rid of the Shah. I thought that was a bad move. There was a better way for Jimmy Carter to have solved that problem. You know, he always believed in free elections and all that kind of stuff. Look, what his beliefs were fine for America, but you cannot impose your democratic beliefs in countries where there's no democracy. So Jimmy Carter was the cause of a lot of problems. I mean, I liked him, he was a great guy, but Jimmy Carter should not have allowed what happened in Iran in the first place. Just like, I don't like what the Americans did with Syria. I mean, with Libya, and taking out Saddam. That was a mistake. Look at all the small arms that you had in Africa today, all the militant groups you have in Africa today. These guys were dictators. Dictators don't tolerate dissent, right? So these countries were safe. You may not have liked them, but they didn't allow dissent in these countries. Now, you took these leaders out. They opened up the armory. Small arms were now all over West Africa. That was a mistake. So you cannot want to take out a leader because you don't like him and then create havoc for 500 million people in West Africa, now in East Africa, in Mozambique. So, when you want to fight a war, you must think of the consequence. You see, you want to take out specific leaders, fine. But how about the consequence for the rest of us? You destroy a whole continent because you don't like 3 people? I think, that kind of arrogance has to come to an end. I disagree with that completely.
Well, no, I agree. I think what is the rationale? I do believe, if their leaders, like in Sudan, early on in South Sudan, was literally starving his people to death. I mean, if they're taking all the money and allowing famine to continue, I think there should be some international action, that kind of thing. But to me, I agree with you. One of the mistakes America made is that it's about exporting democracy, and we shouldn't be trying to force a way of governing on anybody else. Our goal should be promoting freedom, which is a totally different thing. And if we want to help people have the opportunity for freedom, okay, but not for promoting and saying, okay, you have to be a democratic state, that kind of thing. But that's, but then you run into the whole issue about authoritarianism versus, democracy. You have authoritarian regimes, clearly in Russia and China. What do you do about those? But let me go back to the Middle East real quick. Do you think, the two-state solution, the Palestinians, many people argue that one of the reasons that October 7th happened was because Hamas and the Palestinians felt there would never be a two-state solution. So the question is, Netanyahu and others are adamantly opposed to a two-state solution. Trump's opposed to a two-state solution. Do you see that if the world ignores the Palestinians in a two-state solution, that we will eventually have some additional violence? Or do you think that they should try and find a way to settle that issue in the Middle East?
I believe in peace. I believe people should find a way to coexist. That's what I believe. I don't believe in violence. Now, you have to have a two-state solution. The Palestinians are human beings. It is their land. How can you say, this is my land, these are my people, this is my country, but I don't have a state? It don't make any sense. So there has to be a two-state solution. Now, if you look at, and then you need to be patient. You look at the Vietnam War, not Vietnamese. When an American president comes on board and he has certain policies towards North Vietnam, they said, look, don't worry. I've been around for 30, 40 years. In 8 years, the US president is gone. Another guy takes over. Trump is going to be president for only 4 years. So whatever he says or thinks or wants to do, it's only going to be for 4 years. When he leaves, there'll be another president of the United States. The next president of the United States is certainly not going to be a Trump. I don't think anybody is going to be as unusual as Donald Trump. The next president, obviously, will take a different position. You've had several presidents, they've taken different positions towards the Palestinians. All has been united with Israel, but I think ultimately there has to be a two-state solution. Otherwise, it will be warfare throughout our lifetime and our children's lifetime.
Well, I agree. So, but let's go to Asia for a second. Taiwan and China. Taiwan clearly wants to be independent, to be an independent country, wants to be recognized by the world. China wants to consolidate them back into mainland China. What do you think about that conflict, and what do you think is going to happen in 2025?
Well, I've been to Taiwan and I've been to China. And I think if they want to live their lives separately, I can't remember the story. You told me the story how Taiwan was set up from China historically. I think they should live separately. However, the only reason China has not invaded Taiwan is because it will affect their manufacturing interest in terms of the goods they want to sell to the rest of the world. It'll hurt them economically. It's not because they can't win a battle with Taiwan. I'm sure they can overrun Taiwan in 10 minutes or 2 weeks, whatever. So I don't think it's in China's interest to invade Taiwan. I don't think it's in America's interest to defend Taiwan. I don't think they can. It'd be impossible. So I think they have to find a way to have some kind of a truce and live in peace. I think that's the best way for the world economy. It's not about a military victory. That don't make any sense. China can definitely take Taiwan. And I don't think any US president is ready to lose 100,000 American lives to defend Taiwan. So I think the status quo should remain. I don't think China should invade. And I think that's the only way for the world economy not to collapse.
Well, this speaks of an opportunity for countries like Nigeria. I mean, when you have such a population, I mean, one of the reasons China is so strong is because of their economic base, and they make things and they ship it around the world. I mean, all the entrepreneurs there in Nigeria should find a way to create these same products that they do in China, sell it to the world. China loses clout and credibility, and they're not going to be able to take Taiwan. So I do believe, and I don't know how you feel about this, I think these global conflicts represent tremendous opportunities for a country like Nigeria. What do you think about that?
I agree completely. Once we get a power situation organized, I think we now have a government that is pro-business, and I think we will. It's going to take some time. It's a slow process. We don't have the money we thought we had. We're broke. But if we can fix our economy, we should be able to take advantage of those opportunities. But it's not going to be fast. It's going to be slow. And it depends on how quickly. What you're advocating basically is for China to invade Taiwan. The Chinese economy collapses and we take over. Is that what you're saying?
No. Well, can we do it without the invasion of Taiwan? Can we do it without? I just think that, listen, I think that China's power, okay, let's think about it. China's power is based on what? Economics, right? Because
always.
It's not like Russia where they're big bullies and they come around with missiles and guns and they say, oh, we're going to kill you if you don't do what I'm saying you're going to do.
Yeah.
But, China writes economics. So if you take away their economic powerhouse, economic abilities, then they're not going to be able to wage war, and they're not going to be a threat to the world. Correct. This is where I think that, honestly, to me, that I want to talk. The show is based in Nigeria, so I do want to talk a little bit about Nigeria. Nigeria has the greatest potential, in my mind, of any country on this planet. It really does. Okay, if you look at the number of people you have, the infrastructure needs to be increased. But the sheer magnitude of people you have and the entrepreneurism you have and the youth that you have the opportunity to counter and compete with any country out there. You have ports, you have natural resources. I mean, you have oil. So I just think that I would love to see in 2025, and then when the election comes in 2027, is that really focus on Nigeria becoming the powerhouse that it can be. And I do think that if you limit the power and authority of China because of the growth of Nigeria and other countries, I think that will limit conflicts around the world. But no, I'm not advocating conflict at all between China and Taiwan. But I do think in 2025 it's inevitable that something's going to happen.
First of all, Nigeria can and Nigeria should. Let's say we started making solar panels and lithium batteries, and we have all the raw materials here. We have the sand for the solar panels in Bayelsa, in other parts of the country. In Kogi State, we have all the material to make lithium batteries. We can make those electric cars in 9 months, really, in 9 months. And we can make all the panels and so on and so forth. So yes, we do. We definitely do. We should, and we ought to. Maybe I should have the Minister of Science and Technology on the show and the Minister of Trade on this show so we can ask them why we're not doing it, because you're absolutely right. We should. We are lagging behind, and there's no excuse for that. And we need to get these ministers on the show to come and explain to us the policies they have to ensure that these things get done. And I think if we took that position and we aggressively do what you just said, we can be an incredible manufacturing base as a country, and we can make all this equipment. First of all, the beauty of it is very simple. If you take any country who has developed the automobile industry in the last 100 years, they have to retool. They already have the manufacturing capability to make combustion engine vehicles with 3,000 parts to make a car. Now there's a company in California that make a car called the Aptera. The Aptera, it only has 10 parts.
Wow.
It's just 10 parts. So think about it.
Wow.
10 parts. It's called the Aptera. Right, if you Google the Aptera, you get solar roof, 3-wheel, you can do 1,000 miles per charge. right? And I've been in the car. Okay, it's a startup. Now, if you do 500 miles a charge, 600 miles a charge, where are you going to go in a whole day for 500 miles? Even if you go north and south of the country, even a taxi driver. The world is changing, and I think we need to catch up with the rest of the world. And to catch up today is a lot faster than to catch up 50 years ago. The way with AI, the way we manufacture, the way we produce is a lot different. And I think we have a great opportunity with the right leadership, which I think we have. We can make a difference, and I think we need to bring in the ministers of trade, ministers of technology on this show to explain why this is not happening, and they should tell us when they think it should happen. We should challenge them. And Shehu, please get the ministers on the show. You call them right now and get them on the show. They should come and explain to us what they're doing for the country.
You know, you're my booker. You know, you're the person who can make things happen, Ben. So I would love that. No, listen, seriously, I think it's important because, once again, I think Nigeria, 2025 can be a year for Nigeria. It really can be. Listen, we have 3 minutes left. Sadly, only 3 minutes left.
3 minutes?
Go ahead. You want to?
I just started. What do you mean 3 minutes?
We've been talking a lot.
3 minutes? This is a sin, man. This is a cardinal sin. What do you mean 3 minutes, Dane? We need more time.
Well, you own the company, I don't, so.
Man, Shehu is the boss. Yeah, I'm in trouble. So, nothing I can do.
I know, trust me, nothing I can do either. So 2 minutes, now we have 2 minutes. So I want to talk about entertainment real quick, because I know it's something you care a lot about.
Right.
Taylor Swift. Well, I don't know why Taylor Swift didn't do a concert there in Nigeria. Come on, her Eras tour, a $2 billion tour. Golly, I'd love to be her promoter.
Man, $2 billion.
You should have. Why didn't you invite her? Why didn't you invite her to be a guest of Silverberg?
No, I am not familiar with her music, but I hear she's a phenomenal. I was in Liverpool, and she was in town. She shut down the entire city. I had no idea how popular this young lady is. Shut down. I was in Liverpool. Shut down the city where she was. I'm literally shut down the city of Liverpool. Yeah, for $2 billion, we'll be in trouble. Man, I'm jealous. Very jealous.
Here in the UK about how when she came to Birmingham and and other places that she boosted the economy by 20% whenever she came. But in entertainment, let me hear you. You're the entertainment guru. What do you think we're going to see in 2025 from amazing for 2025 in entertainment?
The problem with entertainment is it's hard to predict, and let me tell you why. A star is born every day. It's not an industry like farming, or technology, agriculture. A star is born every day. You can watch the World Cup finals, and some kid you never heard of in your life scores 25 goals. You can go to track and field, and some kid runs 9.5 seconds, or 9.5 seconds for the 100 meters dash. You could wake up tomorrow in June, and some kid has a hit record, or some young man does a concert and makes $3 billion. So for entertainment, it is hard to predict what the future holds. But one thing for sure, it's going to shock me, it's going to shock you, it's going to shock all of us, and somebody will make a fortune. So that's my prediction.
Well, that's a great prediction. Well, sadly, and it really is sad that we have to sign off, but I know. I really do love talking to you, Ben. It's really a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Well, listen, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for allowing this show to exist. I appreciate that. And 2025 is going to be an amazing year for this show and for all of us, I hope. Anyway, Happy New Year to you, Ben.
No, we're going to get Peter Obi on the show. We need to get the Minister of Science and Technology on the show. We need to get the Minister of Trade and Industry on the show. Call them right now, get a time when they can talk to Dane. We need to know what's happening to our economy. And Dane said China will invade Taiwan. And when they invade Taiwan, there'll be great opportunities for Nigeria. Right, Dane? So when is the invasion taking place?
April. April 27th. That's my prediction. So all the
April 22nd.
Watch out. Anyway.
Okay.
Anyway, listen. I'm getting all the bad signs that we have to sign out. Anyway, Ben, thank you. Thank you again for Around the World, being with Dane Waters, Around the World with Dane Waters. And we'll see you next year. Thank you very much.